Hello, everyone. Happy holidays and welcome to Ask the Amigos. This is a show where we answer all of our Discord community's burning questions. And the first question comes from Paul, Boss Man Harrington.
Oh, my.
He says, if you swapped bodies like in Freaky Friday, what would be the first thing you would do?
You want to go first, Boat?
Yeah, I know exactly what I do.
Yeah. That's it. Cough a lot.
Yep.
That's what I would do because I would be sick.
I'd slap on that KSP shirt, and then I'd go I'd head right into Sam's.
Yeah.
And I just strut because people would look at you. I know how people look at you when you're wearing the uniform of the law.
Yeah.
And then I'd figure out all the places that I could go to score that sweet, sweet officer discount.
Yeah. Yeah. I never wear that shirt in public ever.
See, because that's your first mistake.
Well, no, because this is a little inside baseball. There's some people out there that don't like the police.
What?
And they don't want to give you a discount. In fact, they want to screw with your food, for example, or hate you, or jab nails into your tires, so that you would be hosed. And I've got a better one anyway. If I was in a boat, first thing I'd call up Beep and be like, "Hey, make me up a triple banquet, baby. I'll be back in a little while." Then I'd march over to the band room, and I'd be like, "All right, everybody, get your instruments up. We're gonna play a special selection of music from King Diamond." And I'd go in there and I'd play the most evil, satanic death rock you could think of for the big show. And then when we beamed back into the bodies, I'd make sure I timed it to where you had to stand there with the baton in your hand directly after the performance. And then I would laugh. I laugh a lot.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I like it.
But sadly, I've thought these through many times.
Well, so have I. You think that KSP thing was off the top of my head? I too Scooby asks.
I too Scooby. That's what Caesar said when Scooby stabbed him.
What is your favorite 80s expression of approval? For example, radical, awesome, tubular, etc.
I hated radical. The second someone said that they were a geek. Right there. Or tubular. That's another one. Or grody, the max. Any of that Valor garbage. Get that out. I was okay with awesome. I'm going to go with awesome.
I still say stuff is rad. I don't say radical though, but I say rad. That's pretty rad.
I mean, that's low end, but it's still better than tubular.
Yeah, tubular. You can't use tubular unironically.
At Boat Fest, I'm going to say tubular at least 20 times. That's my goal this year.
Well, is Too Scooby asks a follow-up question. Have you ever unironically told someone to talk to the hand because the face is not listening?
Yeah, Luke. I do that all the time, and he's furious when I do it. Furious. That's why I do it.
I've never told anyone to talk to the hand. I've never understood how that works. Like,
what
do you lift up your hand and then the hand becomes your head?
No.
And then are you allowed to turn your hand as some sort of a puppet and mimic the sounds of your voice?
Your hand is like a wall. So when a sucker's talking to you, you don't want to listen to him, you just put the wall up.
Why don't you just say talk to the wall then?
The rest of you is doing something else because it's not really a wall, Bode, is the point. It's symbolic of a wall or a shield.
Living in our times is hard.
No.
You have to understand lots of things like that. It's weird. David Cavalieri asks, here's an important question,
that's
guys.
A cool name.
Cocoa Pebbles or Fruity Pebbles? What do you think?
I'm not a big fan of either, if I'm honest. I'm a Raisin Bran guy, it's the truth. Or like something with bananas in there. I like bananas.
I despise Fruity Pebbles. I think they taste like garbage.
I would probably go with the cocoa as well, yeah.
I love Cocoa Pebbles. I'll tell you what I do. Cocoa Pebbles most cereals are like this, but Cocoa Pebbles especially so. You got to eat those bad boys fresh. You got to pour the milk on it. And before you even finish pouring the milk, you got to have a spoon in your other hand, just shoveling it into your face. But what I do is I get a big mouthful of Cocoa Pebbles, and then I suck the milk out from in between, making a weird vacuum. And then the sort of cluster of partially soggy Cocoa Pebbles, I enjoy at my leisure.
TMI for starters. Secondly, one thing that makes me mad about is something like a Cocoa Pebbles, all those chocolatey cereals. Remember that gimmick on the commercials? Turn your milk to chocolate milk. That's a lie. That does not happen. It makes your milk brown.
Brown.
It's like the C64 version of your milk, but it's not chocolate milk. And the rest of what you said, I'm glad at least you swallowed what you sucked the milk
Oh
out of,
yeah.
as opposed to just letting it drop back in the
It then
bowl.
becomes like chewing tobacco at that point, where you got your spit cup.
That is, that's a quote that's going to live on long after you're gone. What you just said.
Benz asks, last night Karamvir, I apologize for mispronouncing your significant other's name, Benz, made an impromptu visit to the pub and are both feeling slightly worse for wear this morning. What is your go-to hangover cure?
First of all, what was the name again? Try that again.
Karamvir. I think it's Karamvir.
That's a dark, mysterious name right
It
there
is.
for your wife. That's pretty cool. Now, with all that said, I've had a few hangovers, Boat. The number one way you get rid of these things is you have a good old fashioned puke the night before, and it usually sets you up for the next day where you're okay. But there's been a few times where I've had a few too many, and really I've never found, like, some people like say aspirin, will do it, something like that. I will say my buddy at work, he's got this gimmick. He always has the same thing at the bar: vodka with water. And I don't mean on the side. I mean, he takes a cup and pours half of it full of vodka and then waters it down.
Oh my
He
gosh, that's
waters
nasty.
down all of his drinks. He says because the water keeps you from getting hungover. But
Yeah,
I'm
but
like,
you just drink the water separately. Like, I
no,
understand having a couple drinks than drinking a water,
that's
but
not how he won't do it that way. He has to
okay.
pour the water in there with the vodka. So he actually waters down his own stuff. And I tell him, I'm like, listen, the bar takes care of that for you. He's like, no, no. So that's his gimmick. What do you got?
If I've had a little bit too much to drink, then I'll take 2 aspirin and I'll drink literally like 40 ounces of water.
Oh yeah.
I'll drink like 2 bottles of water, and
Hydrate.
that usually does it. If I have drank way too much, there's no hope. I mean, you got to puke. You puke before you go to bed, and then you feel awful the whole next day, no matter what.
Remember that big show me and you and Brent did that we didn't show, and then you called me the next night, later that evening, and you were destroyed. Like a night like that, where we've been together on a few of those where you just went totally over the edge. You can't tell me that a couple aspirin and a couple of water is going to take care of that.
That's not going to do it. That's not going to do. There's nothing that heals that wound but time.
Yeah.
And dumbness. All right. Next up is Christian Russell. He asks, do you watch any esports? And he also asks, what do you think of esports, and is there a future for it?
Normally I would laugh and point to whoever asked that and say, you nerd, but I have here recently, I guess this counts, I've been watching some competitive fighting game stuff because these guys are on like a separate level, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't think this counts, but I also will catch an occasional speed run. So I guess that's sort of like, I mean, there could be a sport around it. Do I see it catching on? Yeah. And the reason I do is my generation doesn't care that much about it, but like Luke would probably watch something like that. He'd probably get into that. It's going to take the esports people a while to like browbeat their way into your brain, which is like what all sports do, but they may pull it off. What do you think?
I think that there's a possibility, but it's going to depend on the next generation, people younger than us, and possibly even 2 generations. Because what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to convince people to have the same sort of affiliation to an esports team that they have to a traditional meat world sports team. And that is a difficult thing to do. Also, esports is like, compared to say like the NFL, esports is completely and utterly totally corrupt all the way from the bottom of the top.
Really? Esports is?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you should read like
is
all
it
of
worse
these
than FIFA?
Like if we're just looking at like the sport as a whole versus say like professional soccer, everything about it, like the way that these teams are constructed, to the way that sometimes they'll throw matches, to the way that like there's been tons of great exposés on like professional StarCraft teams and stuff like that. It's super interesting, but it leads you to think that like any sort of major advertiser is going to shy away from that because they don't want to broadcast, fake stuff. I mean, they've already got wrestling for that. They don't need it for an esports.
when you talk about esports becoming a success, and you compare, of course, now granted, you did compare it to the most popular thing in the country when you compared it to the NFL. You didn't compare it to, like, I don't know, the USFL or something where it might have a chance. But do you ever see a scenario where esports, there'd be some geeks at some monitors, and they're like on the field, and there's like huge stadium full of people in the states that are cheering and
that's already
banners.
here. That already happens.
Where? There's a
Like
stadium full
everywhere.
of people in America.
There's esports. There's dedicated esports arenas that are purpose built for that.
My God, that is that. I mean, it just seems so
But
dumb.
the thing is, it's still so infinitesimally small compared to traditional physical sports.
I wonder if they charge to get into these things.
Yeah, of course they do.
I mean, okay, now again, I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm being legitimately serious when I say this. You're John Boat of Car Schaller. You're a player, all right? Would you pay money to go watch this stuff?
No,
Like,
because I don't like any of the sports that are popular in esports.
What if they were? What's a game you really like? Would you? Is there a game you could think of that you would go pay to see somebody play? That you weren't playing?
Would I go to see? No. I'm just going to tell you straight up. There's not. There's not a game that I care about that much.
The one thing about it is, and this is nothing against the esports people, but like if you go to see like everything from the NFL to wrestling to monster trucks, you're seeing a event unfold before you. It's a live, tangible thing. You know, it's not like a film. This is an arena sport that's sort of like a film where you just sort of watch it, and it's on a screen in front of you. It's not like, so it's a weird thing.
Well, when you watch a professional football game, unless you've got great seats, you're essentially doing the same thing. You're watching the Jumbotron.
But I mean, there's still action on the field, and that does make a difference, you know, to me at least. Maybe, I don't know. This whole thing is esports on a grand scale to me, because I've seen what's going on in Korea with all the stadiums full of people and the StarCraft, and I'm always like, man, that's just crazy. So the fact that could happen here,
it's already happening here. Like I said, it's just a question of degree. Like, do I think that esports will ever become bigger than professional sports, like professional baseball, football, basketball, hockey? No, I don't. Straight up, I don't think that it has that kind of legs. But it has a niche, just like a billion things that the internet culture has birthed have a niche.
So like a Disney, so it could compete with, say, something like a Disney on Ice, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Or Sesame Street Live,
do
something
these
like
things
that.
Tour? Is that what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure there's a circuit. I'm sure there is.
I'm going to look into this, and I'm going to report back, Boat.
Okay, sounds good. Next is, I flipped over to the wrong tab. Oddly enough. Let's see here. We have David Z. He says, what was your favorite Christmas present this year?
Well, I haven't opened any of my gifts yet, so I don't know yet.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave. Ask next month.
Yeah.
Pajako6502 asks, the zombie apocalypse has happened, and you all have to defend yourself. All you have to defend yourself with is your retro gaming collection. What system or peripherals are you going to use to take out the undead?
Well, you want something big and heavy, but something you could grasp, and probably something you don't care that much about, right?
If it's a zombie apocalypse, I don't care about any of my gaming peripherals.
That's true, but still, you still have to take into account the sturdiness of the item and how much damage you could do with it. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, anything old, the older the better, because back in the day they built stuff heavy. Yeah. And you can kill suckers with it. Like this Model M keyboard for the IBM, the original PC that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
This thing weighs 15 pounds.
Yeah, I got one of those.
You attach that to the cord that comes with that thing, the telephone cord, and it's like a flail. You just lasso and then bam, killer.
You know, I'm an old softy, so I would have to do the old Jeff Jarrett. I've got some of these right here in the corner. I've got some of these plastic guitars, you know, from Rock Band. You could probably light somebody up with one of these things, because I've got one that's made of wood, you know, like it was an expensive, but I got it like Goodwill. So I would probably use the guitar. That's where I would use. That's retro gaming related.
David Hearn Ryder asks, what Christmas theme games? Oh, okay. So yeah, David, this all Christmas questions we're gonna push to next month. So please ask your Christmas questions for January.
Yeah.
Pajako6502 asks, holy cow, it's 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and you've forgotten to buy the other ARG members gifts this year. Are you giving them one of your beloved retro treasures? And if so, what? Or is it a quick dash to the gas station?
I'll tell you
what, Pajako, in 2008, I went to Akihabara and I bought a ton of games, and I am still giving out those games as Christmas presents to this day.
Yeah. I've given consoles away that I hadn't planned on giving as gifts several times actually. In fact, I've given Bo at least one. By that, was this? Was it a Christmas gift? I'm trying to remember. I can't remember if it was a Christmas gift, but like the 7800. I was just
Mm-hmm.
one day. I was like, why do I have two of these? This is dumb. Why do I have all these extra cartridges? Bo can enjoy these, so I gave you that. And I guess you still have it.
I
And
do.
Bo also has given me some great stuff. The XEGS here, for example. I think console stuff are great. Now, if it's the last minute, yeah, I'd give stuff. I would give retro gaming stuff away because listen, I've got a crap load of this stuff, and I like having it. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, you can't be a selfish jerk. Plus, lots of people have given us stuff, and so if I was hard up against it, software, I've given out box software and stuff just to give it to people since I wanted to give them a nice gift because we've been very fortunate. People have been very kind to us, so I don't really have a problem with like sharing the wealth boat.
Yeah,
Not to sound
me neither, man.
magnanimous.
Especially the older I get, the more I just want to give everything I have away. So
Boat occasionally just gets rid of stuff that's great and important. And I'll
yeah.
be like, hey, what happened to that boat? And he'll be like, I mean, I've got to watch him. I've got to watch him because he'll trash stuff. I can't tell you the number of times I've caught him getting rid of stuff that I was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Because Boat just goes nuts occasionally and wants to get rid of everything like a monk or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's usually after those monkey visits, I'd wager.
That's true. I is too Scooby asks, how old were you when you learned that Santa Claus was not real?
He's not? The boy still believes. Even to this
He
day.
tells you he still believes.
No, he does. He told me he had a conversation with some kids at school, and he was back in the Saint Nick, because these guys were jerks. No one ever told me. Much like him, I heard rumors and stuff that wasn't real, and then eventually I just went away. Like no one ever told me anything about it. I just stopped.
Yeah, when I think I was in 6th grade, so I was about the boys' age when my dad sat me down and he's like, "Listen," and I still remember. In fact, he brought this up the other day because I've got 2 siblings and I don't know how it worked with them, but he said like, "You cried when you found out," and I remember crying not because it wasn't real, but because I felt betrayed by my father. That like I'd been told a lie for all these years. There's because he went all out. I'd get like letters from Santa where he'd tell me he's like, I'm watching you, all this stuff.
Oh man, your
and
dad was using Santa like some sort of like behavior.
That's right.
Thing.
That's right. So I felt, I just the feeling of being lied to by my dad, like that's stuck with me. And so like I'm not completely sure that if I had a kid, I would go down the whole Santa path at all, just because it was so traumatic for me.
I will never say, ever. I'll never say. I don't care. I've heard that before, what you just said, and some people, everybody's got the different thing.
Yeah,
man. In this day and age, hold on to it as long as you can. That's the way I look at it. Part of me thinks it's really cute, I know the clock's ticking, brother. But
right.
I'm just gonna let it ride.
Let's see. Our next question comes from Lobsterminator when he says, how old were you when you first became Santa Claus?
I have been him before. Does he mean like dress like him, or is there something symbolic here?
I did that. That is the question.
I have dressed as the of course, anytime you're a big
Maybe he
guy,
means how old were you when your hair turned gray and you became extremely fat and jolly?
Oh, young. I was pretty young then. I do share a lot of Santa's qualities.
You do.
I dye the beard, unlike Santa, but otherwise we're right there. No, I've played him a few times over the years. Christmas parties, a couple times. Now you played him just last year.
Yeah,
and this year.
Yeah,
too, right?
last year was my first time dressing as Santa Claus when I gave all the kids, they all wore. You go to Dollar Tree and you buy like 30 or 40 of those reindeer antler headbands.
Yeah,
and they put those on, and you have the Christmas performance.
The Dollar Tree. Is there any better place for the holidays than the
Never.
Dollar Tree? Oh, now the prices got jacked up, but I love that thing.
All right. Next is Let's see. Packbelly asks, at midnight, you're scheduled to be executed for a crime you didn't commit. What do you order for your last meal?
Go ahead, Boat, because you're a real foodie.
I think I'd go Italian. I think I'd get like a tour of Italy, like at Olive Garden, but like a lot better than like the what you get at Olive Garden. But have like lasagna, chicken parm, and Alfredo, big salad, breadsticks, and some nice dessert, tiramisu for dessert.
I'm gonna tell you what the problem with this is. And I went to, this week I went to like 6 prisons. This is a big week, right? And in a lot of those prisons, they were in the midst of having lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the one thing I've learned, and this is no offense to the fine folks that work in the kitchens at these prisons, but the food is not good. They have limited ability to make good food. And so the question would hinge on, is it the food coming from the prison or they're going to bring it in? Because if it's coming from inside that prison, I'm going to order something real simple, because they can't botch it, and because the food stinks. Now,
Mm-hmm.
if they're going to let me get something from outside the prison, listen, you nailed it there with the Italian, because I'm a big fan of the Italian stuff. So I'd probably get, like you go to like Fazoli's, you get like the classic sampler. I'd
Mm-hmm.
want like the better version of that,
Right.
like a big meal. And then what I would get like a dessert, and I would make them go back in time and get me a couple fudgies from the old Mr. Donut. That's the
I
thing I'm
was
always
reading
pining
an
for.
article in a magazine one time about death row, and people talk about the last meal, and they really don't realize that you don't actually get what you want. Like if you ask for a lobster, they'll give you fish sticks. Like they'll give you something that approximates what you want, but they're not bringing in the 5-star Michelin chef to give some guy on death row their last meal.
Yeah, because they're gonna kill you, and also, bad things can happen if you're like mega full. I've heard, but that's a
Mm,
whole different story.
mm.
Listen, death row, no good. Don't go
No
there.
good.
Yeah.
No good. I is to Scooby asks Ginger or Marianne.
Marianne, brother, are you kidding me? I'm a farm girl type.
Yeah,
Ginger, she'd be
I'd go
hard to
with
deal
Marianne
with,
too.
and also you gotta listen. She's tough. She's had all the best stuff. She's been with all the best people. You know, she's been with all the movie stars, and you're just a schlub, right? Marianne lived out in the sticks on a farm. I understand. I could deal with her. She'd never done that. To been nowhere. You got a chance. You can't live up to the expectations that Ginger's gonna have for you. Plus, I always
Yeah.
thought Marianne was just hotter, but that's just me.
Chris Folds asks, "What's your favorite Christmas movie?"
Well, listen, I hate to say it, but Christmas Story is my favorite Christmas movie. I love it. I
It's
love
great.
it. Now
It's great.
I will say they've beat it to the ground, and I haven't watched it for the last couple years because I'm trying to not like it, you know. But they've played it. It's on, and it's been talked about ad nauseum. So, but I
Hmm.
do love it. I love every part of it. I love the sentimental aspects of it. I like the setting, the time period. I love all that stuff. Great film.
Yeah, I mean that's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Um, Although I will say that there's three I always watch every year without fail. It's Christmas Story, Rudolph, and Charlie Brown Christmas.
Oh yeah. If we're going into that, I'll have to say that the Jeremy Brett Sherlock Holmes, the Christmas special they had was awesome. So good. That's one
On
of
the
my all-time
Discord, they were
favorites.
talking about a series of Christmas ghost story
Yeah, yeah.
programs.
I brought that up on the stream last night.
I'd like to
Actually,
watch those. That seems like something that I'd
I
enjoy.
believe the guy's name was ML something.
Shyamalan.
No. Would you stop with that? It's funny because I someone posted, now I can't remember who it was, but it was he does a series. They did a series of his ghost stories. Somebody, M.R. James. Thank you, Mitzi. I think you're the one he brought up. Look into him, Bode, and his work's been reproduced by the BBC countless times in the 70s and 80s. You should really check that out. Tonight, I'm going to be watching some of this stuff to get myself in the spirit. I like a nice Christmas ghost story. I don't like some kind of violent slaughter fest. I want something more like traditional ghost story.
Right. Right. Me too. Paul, aka Hermsky, asks, leg or breast man? Oh, and I'm talking about chickens and turkeys.
I like it. I like the old leg myself, and it's funny because in this house, no one else does.
Really?
I get the leg every time. So
Yeah,
that's it.
I am. Eep doesn't care for the legs either, and so I get the legs most of the time. But there's really no part of a chicken or a turkey that I'm not gonna devour.
I'm right there with
I
you on
love it
that.
all.
Yeah, it's good eating. I could go for one of
Mr.
those right now.
Mr. Dave 6309 asks, which fictional video game world would you like to vacation in?
Well, the Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball world has its charms. What about you?
Probably the Wii Sports world. Like especially like the Wii Sports Resort world. Like that there's a lot of fun things to do there.
That's true. Or even like the place where they film Pilot Wings. That looks like a
Yeah.
pretty nice place. Go
Yeah.
driving around in a plane,
Mm-hmm.
That'd be all right.
Pajako 6502 asks, have you ever eaten a mince pie?
Clearly not, since I didn't know what one was in one. Yeah.
My first mince pie was served to me by the one and only Pixels at Dawn at Amiga Ireland 2019, and I loved it.
Yeah. Pixels, by the way, nice set of pipes. He sang
Oh,
us in on the Amigos this week.
Benz has a good question. What video games remind you of Christmases past?
Video games that remind me of Christmas. They mostly Coco stuff, if I'm honest, because I've told this story a million times. But my favorite all-time gift was a disc drive for my Coco, and so it did open up a whole world of games, like 100 games probably that I could play. And so pretty much all the old games that I had on the Coco, I got them all at once, because I'd had the discs sitting around waiting for the disc drive. So stuff like Donkey King and all the Tron knockoffs and all the knockoff games that we've enjoyed would be right in there, because that was what I had, and they were great to play. So when I think Christmas memories for video games, those are the things that pop into my head. It's the old Coco stuff. What about you?
For me, it's Japanese role-playing games because I would never get video games from my parents for Christmas. Well, not never, but rarely. But I would always get some money, from relatives or whatever. And I would always take that money and I would go to Babbage's at the mall and I would spend, and these are, these games are expensive games, like 75 or 80 bucks on things like Final Fantasy 3, Chrono Trigger.
Really?
And I would play that one game for the whole calendar year until the next year would roll around. So I got my money's worth out of those games.
Christmas is a good time to get a game like that too, because you get the days off. You can
That's right.
You can luxuriate yourself and lose yourself down in that world.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they're not my bag, but I can absolutely see why getting those games right around Christmas time would be great. There's something about gaming around this time of the year. Today's a good example. Here we set boat. It's Arctic Circle City outside. There's winds howling. The doors are froze. It's like 1 degree outside. And once we get done filming these shows, I'm going to get off here, give me something to eat, and I'm going to load up some games, brother, because that's what you do. You got nothing else to do. Watch old shows, play video games. And when you've got nothing else to do and nowhere else to be, it's a great feeling.
It's
when
a
you're
great
a busy
feeling.
person, it's the best. And the fact that I've got all this stuff here, I looked around my room last night. I was like, I could play all this stuff finally. I got 10 days off. It's going to be great. And that's the best thing about the holidays.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Barkbit asks, what tune makes you do a duck face and push the pedal to the metal?
Oh, man. Well, the first one that comes to mind, and this is hokey again. I hate to give these hokey answers, but Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive 55. I remember that used to get, I delivered pizza, and that song would come on, and I would purposely hit the gas and drive as fast as I could. I love that song. I like the premise of the song, so that's what comes to my head.
I rarely look at these questions in advance.
Yeah.
And most of the time stuff pops in my head, but I honestly, I know there are songs that fit this category and I just can't think of like a good driving song.
Buck mentions one in chat, Radar Love from Golden Earring. That's great, but I actually prefer the White Lion version. It's a little speedier than the Golden Earring, but that's another great one. There's a lot. If you play Rock Band, you'll come across a million of these things. Ace of Spades, stuff like that, where you just want to slam the car into something.
Right.
But that I always like that. But we listen
driving right off a bridge.
Yeah, you listen to. I mean, I don't know what do you listen to in the car? I mean, you could be listening for anything from like band music to easy jazz. What do you hear in the car?
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of the times when I'm driving, I want to be relaxed. I don't want to be super intense when I'm driving because there's enough idiocy going on that I want to be relaxed.
Yeah.
But when I think about like something that's more up tempo, like the first Boston record, I'll put that on sometimes on a road trip.
Man, that's a good record. Holy boy,
Yeah.
that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm not listening to music in the car anymore. There's
Yeah,
also
it's
that.
I'm 90% podcast these
I'm the
days.
same exact way. Now,
Hmm.
and if I am listening to music, it's stuff like the C64 show where they have nothing but C64 tunes. They're like every
Hmm.
month it's a new set of tunes. I like listening to those in the car. Some of those will get you pumped up too.
Oh yeah,
Somebody fire up
absolutely.
Blood Money or something. I'm ready to go. Kill a guy.
Next up we got David Hearn Ryder. He says, Aaron, is there a game you or would like to take great delight in beating Boat in? Same question for you, Boat. So, is there a game you would like to take delight in beating me in?
I love. By the way, I played this on the A500 Mini. First game I always play, which you know what it is, TB Sports Basketball. I love that game. And actually, me and Boat played that on the show one time, and he beat me. It was so humbling. I've never gotten over it because that's my game, and And Boat never played that game, and
Mm-mm.
so I love that game. So I'm not gonna lie, I would like to take him down a peg or two at that game. But the problem is, me and Boat. It's funny, we do play sort of different games sometimes. Sometimes we like the same stuff, but Boat, we don't. It's not like you're a big sports gamer or anything, are you? I mean,
Right.
you're more of
Right.
a
A lot of the games that we both enjoy playing are not competitive multiplayer games. Now, I mean, there are tons of games, like for example, that I think it would be fun to compete against you with. But I mean, like for example, like I would love to beat you in Donkey Kong, but that will never happen because you're way better than
yeah.
me at that. But I think there are other games like maybe Zookeeper. Maybe we could have a pretty competitive match in that.
One thing I like. Here's the big deal, and it is when we get together because I see Boat almost every week in person. Today's an exception, but normally we see each other in person at least once a week. Last week we saw each other at a party, but whenever we get together, we're almost always recording the entire time. And so it's very rare that if Boat maybe sticks around for a Friday Night Disasters or so, we get to play any games together. That's why it's so special when we do those Amigathons and stuff. Like when me and you and Brent played World Games, for example. It's one of my all time, and the gymnastics part and the cliff diving. I love, even playing something like a Kickstart 2 or something, or Kickoff 2. I love getting together and play. I wish we had more time to do it, but it's hard enough to get together once a week to do the shows, much less getting together just to screw around. There was a time when we got to do it back when we played the 3DO and stuff, Bo, but we're pretty busy these days.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? I just thought of my song. While you were talking and I was not listening to you, I
Yeah,
thought of my
I
song.
get that a lot.
It's that Don Henley song.
Boys of Summer.
Yeah, yeah. That's to me, like when I hear that, that's when I that's when I put the pedal to the metal, baby.
Is it because you hate Don Henley and the Eagles?
No,
Okay.
actually I do kind of hate the Eagles, but I like
You're
that
gonna
song.
be like the dude. The dude
Yeah.
hated it.
Yeah,
That's
the
a good
Eagles,
song though. I like
yeah,
that
I do.
song.
I like that song a lot. Okay. Anyway, we move on. We move on to Jazz Dog. He says you want to leave Santa Claus 4 gallons of milk to go with the plate full of cookies you leave on Christmas Eve.
Jeez.
You only have a 3-gallon bucket and a 5-gallon bucket. How do you measure out 4 gallons?
Well, 4 gallons. I guess we're feeding the reindeer too. Yeah, so this is one of those questions you get on the Scantron
This is
test.
again, it's like the wolf, the weaver, and the sheep. Which
Yeah.
one do you leave on the shore?
Well, you got it would say a 5 gallon bucket, a 3 gallon bucket, right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you fill up the 5 gallon bucket, right, and then you pour that into the 3 gallon bucket. That means you got 3 gallons and 2 gallons. Then you pour out half what's in the 5 gallon. You got 4 gallons.
You know what I do? You just fill the 5-gallon bucket almost all the way up to the top.
What? You're just gonna waste the milk?
You
That's
just
not answering.
eyeball it.
What you need is a trough for
Yeah.
that sort of amount of milk.
Yeah.
I'm too cheap to be giving away. I love Santa, but milk's expensive. At 4 gallons of milk, that's a lot of money right there. You're
It
probably
is.
talking 20.
Are you a
25
big
bucks.
milk guy? We've never really talked about that before.
I do. When I lived by myself, it was I used to drink tons and tons of skim milk, tons of it, and because it's better for you.
Mm-hmm.
I love milk, but here at the chateau, Tree always has me get the boy whole milk. That's what he drinks, right? Now I'll drink whole milk, or two. I'll drink any of it, but I can drink skim milk just as easy.
Yeah.
But I do like milk. I don't drink as much as I could, but I do like it.
You're not a fan of the sort of new trendy other sorts of milk like oat milk or almond milk.
Oh no, that's good stuff. I've got some in the fridge right now. It keeps forever. We've
I
got.
am exclusively drinking the almond milk and have been for a long time.
I
I
mean, it's
love it.
good, isn't it? And the thing
Yeah.
is, you could just like it doesn't go bad, right?
Right.
We've got
Right.
a ton of it up at the old camp. You could just in
Yeah, that's a
case.
good place
Yeah,
for it. Mr. Rocket asks, there have been many overhyped and underperforming failures in the history of video games and systems.
that's true.
In your opinion, which game, system, or technology promised the most but delivered the least?
Promised the most but delivered the least.
I will go with the early multimedia CD based consoles, and I group the 3DO, the other thing, the CDI, all of those multimedia set top box game consoles
CDTV.
together, CDTV, all that stuff.
Yeah, well, the thing is, they delivered a lot of what they promised. I mean, people didn't care, but they did deliver CD content on your television. They delivered it. When I have to think about something that promised the most and delivered the least, I'm going back to my Rolodex of crappy ARG machines that I've tried out. The one that comes to mind right immediately, I hate to say it, 'cause I always pick on it, it's the Jag, brother, because
Yeah.
this game, this machine,
There were a lot of promises made around the Jack.
yeah, and also, I mean, and I could also, well, I would get myself in trouble if I said the other one, but the Jag, see, Brent said the same thing. Look at that, great minds. The Jag has multi-processors, and they just picked the processor to use that they knew how to program for. Didn't even bother with the new ones. It was just 68,000. That's why you get so many Amiga ports and stuff and weird games. They just did a poor job. Another one that comes to mind when I think about that sort of failure is the old Halcyon, which I don't think ever got released. This was the Laserdisc based console that was going to play Space Ace and stuff. I was really excited about that, and it didn't. It never really got out of the box. It was just, I think they released like a couple hundred, and that was it. So that's another one I think of. But I mean, that one promised a ton and delivered zero, whereas the Jag promised a lot and delivered a little. So those are my two entrants there.
Yeah, I think those are all great. Christian Russell asks, what's your favorite British band that isn't the Stones, the Beatles, or Mark Morrison?
Gosh. Geez, that's a tough question, isn't it? You're a big music guy. Go ahead.
Nick Drake.
I don't know who that is.
He's not really a band, he's a singer.
Uh-huh.
But he's my favorite British guy that isn't one of those three.
Oh, jeez. I love Jethro Tull an awful lot.
Or Yes. Yes is actually the answer because that's a band. Yes.
You could pick more than one because I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to say Jethro Tull. Right? They're awesome. I'm also going to say, God, I mean, because this isn't even fair. Because you got to start thinking about all the bands you like that are British. There's a zillion of them that are great. I like The Cure. Man, if you want the truth, I like them too.
I'm not going to lie to you. 80% of my favorite bands are British.
Yeah.
And that's a shoot.
I believe it. There's tons of great Brits. ELO would be number one.
I didn't even know they were British. Jeff Lynne's British. I've never heard him utter a word.
Yeah, he's British. Oh yeah, he's super British. So it'd be ELO, Jethro Tull, and then you've got there's a lot of other guys back there. There's a lot of great bands.
Yeah, I mean, Bell and Sebastian, they're British. I think Scotland counts as British. There's of course, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of like my favorite bands of all time that aren't British. And there's really not. I mean, I'd say, yeah. The Cure is great. I just bought a Blu-ray audio anniversary edition of Skylarking by XTC. One of my favorite albums of all time, though I'm not huge on XTC as a band. But anyway, yes, there's tons of them. Tons.
Yeah,
Queen, another great. Yeah,
Yeah,
Black
gosh,
Sabbath,
the
Iron
people are
Maiden, Deep
naming them.
Purple.
There's so many good ones, but I am going to
Yeah,
stick. I will say I can definitively say that ELO is right up there for me, number one.
yeah. For me, band wise, yes. All right. Final question, Aaron. If you were suddenly arrested for no reason and your face was flashed all over the news, what would your family and friends assume that you did?
Oh, it would be some sort of computer crime, I would wager. I would say probably they'd probably call in my tab for all those years that I bootleg stuff on eBay. Because my mom knew about that. So I would say probably knowing me like, and the thing is, how your parents are, the little trifling things you did that you're never going to get in trouble for. They assume it's the biggest crime of the century, and you're gonna get caught and go to hell.
Hard
And so
time.
my mom knew eventually she figured out that I was like a Rob Flacco O'Hara level super thief when it comes to like piracy. So they would assume that's what it would be for. What it would actually be for is I would probably hit a breaking point with somebody and just pummel them. That's probably what would happen, or push them off a cliff or something. Because sometimes people really irritate me. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
so I don't, because I'm not the kind of guy that would commit most crimes, but I do have a ceiling on how much I could take, and then there you go. What about
Yeah.
you?
Probably just for caring too much.
Oh, are you kidding me, Boat? Try again.
No, I mean, obviously, if a teacher gets arrested, most of the time it's because they've done something inappropriate with a student.
Yeah, but don't
So,
go down that road.
I mean, like if somebody just sees that a teacher's arrested, that's what they automatically assume. Um, I think as far as like illegal things that I've done that I could possibly be arrested for, maybe some I don't know. I mean, yeah, piracy, maybe. Um, or actually, you know what? Like, I could definitely be busted legitimately for like making endless Xerox copies of band music for kids because all that is illegal. Like, we have a class set of like pop tunes from the 2020s, and like the kids love that because it's all Taylor Swift and stuff. And I'm not going to buy like a book like for each kid, so I just have one book and I make copies out of that book. So like that's totally illegal. They
They
could
all
haul
do
me in
that.
for that tomorrow.
Hey, have you heard the new Taylor Swift album, by the way?
No, is it good?
What's your opinion on Taylor Swift?
Not really heard anything other than Shake It Off.
I'd like to hate her because she's
Mm-hmm.
overhyped and she's everywhere. But I heard the new album and I kind of dug it. There's a couple songs that I really like. I don't hate Taylor Swift. I give the kid credit. I don't know
What
if she
about
writes.
Billie Eilish?
I'm not a fan. She's the Commodore 64 of singers, except
Yeah,
for the musical part. She's just
yeah.
dull, bland goof. It's just, and the thing is, it's all an image. I saw a thing I watched this gimmick on music a couple weeks ago on YouTube, and they were talking about how these about posers, and like
Mm-hmm.
Ellis and her brother, they're supposed to come out of the bedroom, and they did all this stuff on their own. So their dad paid like 10 grand a music producer. Her parents are multimillionaires. Her mom has an album. It's not like they just came from the hood, yo. They had connections all over the place. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, if you got talent, go for it. But I don't like it when someone comes up like out of nowhere, glory boy coming from nowhere with no hope, and they suddenly make it. That's a great story when it's true, but when it's not true, it makes you look like a jerk. That I don't
Mm.
like.
Now, we missed this on the show, but I did want to mention it before we wrap up. For those of you who are listening, you might know about Retro Rewind. They're a longtime friend and sponsor of the Amigos podcast, and also the Coco Show. You can use promo code Amigos10 over at Retro Rewind. Any amount of items in your cart, 15% off, Aaron. 15% off on Boxing Day. And only on Boxing Day, if you spend over $100, you will also get free shipping. You cannot beat that deal.
What a deal. Hey, let me ask you a question about Boxing Day. So what is that? I know it's a holiday. What does that mean?
What's the day after Christmas?
Right.
And I think I think traditionally, on Christmas, I think that in like the Commonwealth in England, and this is just going off dim recollections of things that I've read. Traditionally, it was not a gift giving day; it was more of a
Yeah.
day for celebration. And then Boxing Day was actually the day where you gave the gifts.
That's where you take the gift with force. That'd be a better holiday. So it's got nothing to do with professional boxing, is what you're saying.
Man, I wish it did. That's when you get the boxing kangaroos and gorillas out.
I've been watching a lot of boxing on YouTube, but you probably noticed that.
Yeah.
And it's all stuff from the '70s. Holy smokes, that was the best time for boxing, brother. It was great. So if there's a Canadian holiday to celebrate boxing, then I'm in. I think that's dandy. 15% and free shipping over $100. Holy smokes. You got to get in on that. Where's my checkbook, brother? I'm going to get on that myself. That's a good deal. RetroRewind.ca, man.
Happy Coding informs us that Boxing Day got its name from Queen Victoria, who decreed in 1800 that the country and the wealthy should box up presents or money for their maids, chefs, and housekeepers.
Yeah. I'll be waiting on my boxed up goodies to come from some rich guy. That's the way it should be. I like it's a good idea. The Queen. So what did Queen Victoria box up? Is what I want to know.
Oh, you don't know what didn't she box up?
Yep.
She was the queen boxer.
Maybe she was. I don't know. We're off the rails. Take it home, boat.
Guys, thanks so much for listening. As always, if you'd like to leave us a question, head on over to our Discord server. If you'd like to become a member of our Discord community, patreon.com/Amigos podcast will get you there. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next time. And until then,
Adios.
Adios.